Over the last several decades, more than 16,000 people have disappeared in Alaska, most never seen again. Many believe the terrain and local predators are the cause of these disappearances, but Alaska is a place of folklore, and many believe the legends are key to this mysterious place. Home of the last frontier, Alaska is a realm of vast, untracked wilderness where many monsters and evil spirits roam. Today, we will look at 10 of the creepiest urban legends from Alaska. Winding over 1,000 miles through the remote mountains and valleys and through some of the roughest terrain around is the legendary Iditarod Trail. Also known as the Stewart to Nome Trail, it connected Stewart, Alaska through Iditarod and then to Nome. The history of the region goes back to the natives of the area, but really hit its peak when gold was discovered, which brought many people hoping to strike it rich. The once inhospitable trail became home to many stops over points, roadhouses, and settlements catering to the weary. It was also popular due to the sledding route during the winter, with goods being delivered over the frozen terrain by mushers, which was the only way to do it during this time. The trail really made history when a life-saving serum for treating diphtheria was delivered by dog sleds using the Iditarod Trail in 1918. As years passed, the trails and sleds became obsolete, gold dried up, and the boom towns became abandoned, slowly reclaimed by the land and buried in the tundra. With renewed efforts to preserve it, and the start of the Iditarod Trail sled dog race in 1973, which made mushing popular again, in 1978 it was designated as a National Historic Trail, which brought it back to life. The trail is still remote and mostly inhospitable, especially in the winter. Dog sleds and snowmobiles are the popular way to navigate the area. In the summertime, hiking the trail is common. Ghost towns can still be seen along the trail, with community museums dotting the area. The Iditarod Trail sled dog race, the most popular of the many races here, is carried out in March, passing through the ghost town of Iditarod as well as others along the trail. Although meant to commemorate the historic place of dog sledding in the gold rush days, the race also has an eerie side to it, with many mushers returning from the trail with tales of encounters with the supernatural. Many of the encounters seem to stem around a place called Old Woman, which is also the name of a mountain on the last stretch to Nome, as well as an abandoned cabin sitting in the woods in the shadow of the mountain. The cabin is said to have been home to a reclusive woman who died here. She is reported to appear as a beautiful woman or an old hag. The spirit of the woman is often seen watching the dog sleds pass by while standing just off the trail, sometimes walking along it. Mushers have reported being grabbed or poked by unseen hands, or to have their dogs panic suddenly or freeze and refuse to move anywhere near the cabin. Those who have entered the cabin reported hearing an old woman singing, or to have been lured into a strange trance that is almost impossible to snap out of. It is also reported that the mysterious force provokes an irrational urge to stay there. The old woman is so feared by racers that they will sometimes leave offerings in an attempt to appease her spirit. There are other spirits reported to haunt the trail, including a man who died in an avalanche, and he goes around helping those on the trail in need, as well as many old-time miners and campers seen in various areas along the trail that seem to disappear almost as quickly as they appear. It seems to be that a large number of ghost stories and legends from Alaska come from what was once the world's richest copper and gold mines. The old railroad that once serviced Kennecott copper mines is said to be so haunted that to this day the spirits have stopped any attempts, even by the government, to redevelop the area. The old abandoned railroad is a 200-mile-long stretch of tracks winding from Kennecott Glacier south to Cordova on the Prince William Sound. Completed in 1911, the railroad was built over many unstable areas, including a massive glacier, which caused the tracks to have to be moved almost every day because of the shifting ice. During construction, the laborers had to dig through deep snow and avalanches, while others had to blast their way through miles of rock. With these horrendous conditions, many workers lost their lives during the construction. For many years, people have reported that along the path next to the tracks, they would see tombstones, but on the way back down the path, the tombstones disappeared. At the end of the 20th century, the state of Alaska started trying to develop government housing along the trail. During the construction, workers reported regularly seeing phantom visions and hearing disembodied voices of children and adults along the old copper railroad, which made continuing to work there completely impossible for them. Soon, things got worse for the workers, and they started losing tools, sometimes right from their belts and boxes. All the stories and sightings were enough to scare off even the bravest of workers. It is rumored that the project was canceled due to the ghost of the mines. The Red Onion Saloon was originally a brothel, but throughout the years it has served many other things, including an army barracks, a bakery, a laundry, a union hall, a gift shop, and a television station. The Red Onion Saloon opened in 1898 and has 2 stories with a storefront window. On the first floor was the saloon, and the second floor had 10 small rooms they called cribs, where the prostitutes would entertain their guests, mostly gold miners of the area. The brothel had a very unique way for the men to order the girls for the night. There were 10 dolls behind the bar, each representing the girls upstairs. If a doll was laying flat, it meant she was busy, and if she was upright, she was available. The Red Onion Saloon was also considered one of the classiest dance halls in the town, but as bigger halls were built and business dwindled, it finally closed its doors. Today, it has been restored back to the original Red Onion Saloon and is open for business, offering guided tours with historians dressed as madams, as well as a bartender serving drinks dressed in period clothing. One of the most famous spirits of the Red Onion Saloon is Lydia, a former prostitute of the brothel. There have been many reports of footsteps heard on the second floor, as well as the strong smell of perfume that lingers, and extreme cold spots where the perfume originated from. It is also reported that Lydia waters the plants. Many times, the hostess of the house would find the soil in the pots damp, as if it had been watered recently. There is also a report of a disturbance on the second floor where police were called to check it out. When they reached the stairs, they saw a figure running down the hall into Lydia's former room. When they inspected the room, they found it empty and nowhere for anybody to get away. Lydia has been seen many times walking the rooms on the second floor, and it's said that sometimes she can be hostile towards men. While Anchorage was in its infancy, The original hotel was built on the corner of 3rd Avenue and E Street. For a while, it was the premier lodging and meeting place. For many years, it was also the only hotel in Anchorage where you could eat a meal on fine china. One of the most famous guests of the Anchorage Hotel was Sidney Lawrence, who spent most of his later years in Alaska in his painting studio located in the hotel's lobby. For a while, the hotel served as lodging under various names and started to deteriorate until 1989, when new ownership brought it back to life with extensive renovations. There have been many reports through the years of paranormal happenings. One story is about the first police chief of Anchorage from the 1920s. Chief of Police Jack Sturgis was shot in the back and died just a few feet from the hotel, and his killer was never caught. According to legends, Jack visits the scene of the crime every year to look for his killer. Other reports include the apparition of a young girl walking the second-floor hall. The TV in room 217 and 215 turns on and off on its own, and the faucets in these rooms turn on and off despite regular maintenance by plumbers. There are also reports of a woman who hung herself while still wearing her wedding gown. Stories say she was heartbroken when her groom did not show up on the wedding day. Guests have also reported pictures flying off the walls, as well as various faces and figures appearing and disappearing. Sightings and activity have become so frequent now that a log on the encounters and experiences is now kept. There are certain areas of our planet that seem to be magnets for missing people and other mysterious disappearances. Most people have heard of the famous Bermuda Triangle, but did you know there are many other of these places around the world? Alaska's triangle is said to encompass a large section of the state, from Janu to Barrow, as well as the Anchorage region. Inside this zone is a large area of unexplored wilderness, mountains, and barren tundras. Many people, including locals and tourists, go missing in this region every year, as well as many mysterious plane disappearances. It is reported that since 1988, over 16,000 people have vanished without a trace from this region. The cause of so many disappearances have been debated over the years. According to local legends, the area has been associated with evil spirits, including the famous Kushtaka. Another legend says the Alaska Triangle comprises one of the vile vortexes, which are areas that exhibit electromagnetic anomalies as well as ley lines. Examples of other such similar places include, of course, the Bermuda Triangle, Algerian Megathis, south of Timbuktu, Indus Valley in Pakistan, Hamakalua Volcano in Hawaii, the Devil's Sea near Japan, and both the North and South Poles. Some of the famous places reported to have similar vortexes are the Stonehenge, Esther Island, and the pyramids of Egypt. Some interesting things seem to help support the idea that the Alaska Triangle could be one of these vortexes. For one, Alaska is covered with large concentrations of magnetic anomalies, which can disrupt compasses to the point that they are off by up to 30 degrees. Many search and rescue workers have reported audio hallucinations described as sounding like an angry swarm of bees, and also feeling unusually disoriented or lightheaded. Could the possible vortex have anything to do with the mysterious disappearances? Or is it simply that the disappearances are because people get lost in the area and end up being buried by the land? After all, the Alaska Triangle covers some of the wildest, untamed, and unexplored land in the state. But could it be hiding something strange out there too? Kushtaka are mythical creatures found in the legends from Kennecott and Shishiman natives of South Alaska, and are similar legends from the Naina natives of South Central Alaska and Urali and Eskimos in northern Alaska. Kushtaka are shapeshifters that assume either human or otter form. Sometimes they are said to take the form of any species of otters, while other legends say only one kind. There are also various accounts of their behavior that conflict with one another. Some stories say they are cruel creatures that enjoy tricking sailors to their deaths, while others say they are friendly and helpful, often saving people from freezing to death by distracting them with illusions of their family and friends as they transform their subjects into a fellow Kushtaka, allowing them to survive the cold. Kushtaka legends are not always pleasant. Some legends say they will imitate the cries of a baby or the screams of a woman to lure their victims to the river, where they will either kill the person or turn them into another Kushtaka. According to legends, the Kushtaka can be warded off with either copper, urine, and sometimes fire. Legends also say Kushtaka imitates a high-pitched three-part whistle in the pattern of low, high, low. The Keelut is a spirit of the underworld that comes to the surface during the winter months. When the spirit is in physical form, it appears as a black, hairless dog with only hair on its feet. According to legends, the Keelut feasts upon the dead and is a harbinger of death that like to attack those traveling alone. The creature will send its prey into fits just by looking at them, causing them to forget who they are and where they're going. Soon, the disoriented victim dies of hypothermia, and the only thing the Keelut needs to do to enjoy its feast is wait. If confronted by noise and shouts, the Keelut tend to run away and is particularly sensitive to the sound of its name. Remember, the Keelut are master hunters, and most often their victims don't realize it is after them until it is too late. If there is anywhere on Earth where a creature like Bigfoot could be hiding, it would definitely be the least populated state. With thousands of square miles of uncharted forest, Alaska would be the perfect hiding place for all types of cryptids and monsters. There are reports of Bigfoot sightings from all over the world, but the Alaskan version seems to be the most extreme. Standing more than 10 feet tall, with shaggy, coarse hair, the creature is also reported to have elongated arms and is foul-smelling. According to natives of the land, the hairy man is a descendant from a species of creature known as the tornad. According to their legends, the natives and the tornads once had a harmonious relationship, which ended when a young native killed a tornad who had damaged his kayak. Ever since, there have been many stories of missing hunters that were never seen again, with some of the bodies eventually turning up mangled and mutilated. Some reports of Bigfoot in Alaska include a pregnant Sasquatch, 8 men who swim like frogs, a Bigfoot that has learnt to use a knife, and an entire village that moved to avoid a conflict with the creature. On November 16, 1986, a UFO was sighted by the crew of a Japanese jumbo freighter aircraft, and one of the most interesting UFO sightings reported. The Boeing 747 was carrying a cargo of French wine from Paris, France to Anchorage, Alaska, and then on to Tokyo, Japan, with a stop at Reykjavik in Iceland. While making final preparations before descending into Anchorage Airport, the captain and crew spotted unusual white and yellow lights ahead, below, and to the left of the plane. At first, they thought it was military aircraft. When the lights continued to follow them, the captain made contact with Anchorage Air Traffic Control to ask if there were any other aircraft in the area. Both Anchorage and nearby military radar said they were picking up weak signals from the vicinity. The crew watched one huge lighted object and two small lights on their radar for over a half hour. They continued to watch as they flew 350 miles across Alaska from Fort Yukon to Anchorage Airport. One of the objects was described as being twice the size of the aircraft carrier. The pilots, with permission from air traffic controllers, engaged in invasive maneuvers to avoid the UFOs, which didn't help. They continued to follow the plane through both maneuvers and during several turns for 32 minutes before disappearing. The pilot reported that the UFOs moved quickly and were able to stop suddenly, and that the light from the gigantic mothership was so bright it lit the plane's cockpit, and that they could feel the heat from the lights. He also stated the UFO changed from a horizontal position to a vertical position in front of the plane to the port side. When the FAA investigated the incident, they found the crew to be normal, professional, and rational. U.S. FAA authorities admitted that the objects were tracked on radar but did not register on radar tapes. The Baranof Castle, also referred to as Castle Hill, is one of the most historically important sites in Alaska. The site was originally used as a fort for the Tlingit natives before being occupied by the Russians between 1804 and 1867, who built a castle at the fort's location. In 1867, a formal ceremony took place here at Baranof Castle, transferring Alaska over to the United States. Today, all that remains of this historical location are a few cannons from the 1800s and panels teaching visitors the history of the area. Oh, and there is also a spirit of a Russian princess. There have been many reported sightings of a mournful lady in dark clothing since the U.S. took over. According to legends, the spirit is of a Russian princess who committed suicide there during her wedding night after being forced to marry a man she didn't love. The ghostly presence is also reported to haunt the nearby Russian bishop's house.